SAFM.
23 minutes to 11. This is the talking point here on SAFM 104 to 107. So, are you worried that maybe you won't be able to see your favorite program on SABC or hear your favorite program on radio? Let's find out. Because the situation, some people have described it as dire here at the SABC. You would have heard yesterday the Minister of Communications as well talking about bailing out the SABC, talking about a turnaround strategy that is incomplete or that is a repeat of what they've seen before and so on and so on. So we see BEMAWU, also one of the unions that operates in this space, demanding answers related to the conditions the public broadcaster must meet before it can receive a bailout. Previously, it emerged that one of the conditions would be staff retrenchments. Dr. Craig van Rooyen is the Acting Chief Operations Officer here at the SABC. Dr. van Rooyen, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Bongi. Thanks for having me on your show.
Okay, so what is the situation right now? This evening, will we be able to see our favorite soapies? We'll be able to hear our favorite radio programs. Where is the situation? How dire is it?
Yes, we're sitting with a huge problem within the SABC, and currently one of the key focuses within the SABC is first of all to ensure that its staff is paid. So I can assure you that tonight you'll definitely be able to watch your favorite programs, and probably tomorrow as well. The challenge that we sit with as well is, whilst we're paying staff, there's a lot of creditors out there whom we're not paying. And in certain instances, we reliant on them for not having pulled in the payments that's required. Some key payments that's expected to be paid, of course, is Centec. I think we owe them close to R500 million. And the other institute is Supersport. We owe them in the region of about 250 million. And then the big concern for me is all the production houses within the SABC. A lot of them have been carrying a lot of our cash flow, and you can't do that forever. At some stage, they also have to run businesses, and what we're doing is on a daily basis. There's meetings within the SABC in terms of how we manage cash flow and who we pay first. So for now, I can see that people will be paid, we will be on air, but again, if these people go the legal route to pull in these sums of money that we owe them, we could be facing serious challenges in the future.
And the fact of the matter is that there needs to be restructuring here. And we know about the challenges of the, yesteryear and so on and so on. There needs to be restructuring. The shareholder seems not to be, taking an appetite in what you've presented. So where is the issue? Where is the disconnect there?
Yeah, I think there's a confusion.
Yeah.
The confusion is really born out of the fact I don't think that the shareholder or the DOC is unhappy with the turnaround strategy. The turnaround strategy, or the approval of the turnaround strategy, is not reliant on the DOC or reliant on Treasury. It's the SABC board is the only institution who has the right to approve the turnaround strategy. Where the DOC and Treasury becomes involved is around assistance to get a guarantee from Treasury so that we can go out with a piece of security to the banks. And normally Treasury has certain preconditions that they require for a guarantee. And these preconditions are administrative details that the SABC doesn't deal with on a daily basis. Because GTAC and Treasury have been busy with guarantees over a number of years for other SOEs, we rely on their assistance to tiptoe through the tulips to assist us with the whole administrative process of a guarantee.
So why has it taken so long then to finalize that assistance? I mean, it started in the 5th Parliament. We're having the same conversation right up to the 6th Parliament, understanding how critical the situation is at the SABC. If, for instance, Centec were to say we're switching you off tomorrow because of the R500 million that is owed to us, yes, it's a state entity, but they have their responsibilities as well. If SuperSport were to say to us, we're not going to give you a feed, or however that deal is structured tomorrow, what happens?
Bongi, that's a real challenge, and at the moment it seems as if our immediate future in terms of cash flow really sits with those two suppliers that you've mentioned. For now, I can say that we have a turnaround strategy that is in place, and the turnaround strategy is being implemented, and it's the same turnaround strategy which has avoided the kind of losses we've experienced in previous years. It's the same turnaround strategy that was able to allow us to bring a really strong elections to the people of South Africa, and it's the same strategy that also secured as a very strong digital platform. So at the moment, it's common knowledge that we're not the only SOE who is challenged in terms of securing additional funding either through a guarantee or bailout. There are other institutions that require it as well. And I think government has a hard choice in terms of making those decisions. What government is doing is trying to assist us in terms of providing security in the form of a guarantee so that we can go out to banks. If we get a loan from banks, we incur interest, we'll have to pay that back. But what it means is it's not money that would come out of the government coffers directly. Yes. I also want to add that there is commitment from the DOC to assist us. And as you work through these administrative process of trying to secure a guarantee, it is incumbent to try and enlist or solicit help from other institutions. And I think what we've been going through with government or DOC and Treasury is assistance via their GTAC team to assist us in areas of our turnaround strategy mainly for bolstering purposes. So we'd be looking at areas where maybe we can use some of the experience that they've gained in other institutions just to assist us to bolster certain aspects of the guarantee. Some of them would be in the digital arena as an example, but most of that has already been established and it's being rolled out as we speak.
The turnaround strategy that you've worked on that has saved the SABC at least until now, one of the elements of it was what the GCO highlighted, that we have a system that has an excess workforce. Are you going to begin to implement that in earnest and look at maybe just shaving off the workforce, the workers here? Are you going to retrench people?
Okay. For now, what I can say, and we're talking for now, is that the retrenchment process is typically referred to as the Section 189A, the infamous Section 189A. That's been put in abeyance by the board. Currently, what's happening in the SABC is we are trading recklessly as directors, and as one is trading recklessly, it's incumbent that you try and find tools that one can call upon to assist you. And typically, in a normal environment, the Section 189A would be a requirement to assist you to get out of the financial situation that we're in. So because it's been put in abeyance, we're looking at other opportunities within the SABC for now to try and curtail our labor costs. So a typical example would be where we go through the whole process of a skills audit, and the skills audit is basically looking at different skills and education that a person may have and how they could be used in areas of the business that you would naturally go outside of the SABC to try and find that skill or education for someone to fulfill a role. So that's what the skills audit is there for. And the skills audit as well is one of the tools to assist us on moving internal staff and reducing costs. However, it requires collaboration from labor, because often what happens within institutions is that labor also doesn't want you to go through a 189A process, but they also don't assist in allowing staff to be moved to different areas of the business. So I often find people find themselves in grievances or they get challenged from labor.
Because the reality right now is that the government would not allow you to retrench people, especially at this depressed time of the economy. But the reality is there is no money to continue with that. Let me then move on to another issue, the issue of mandates. There is programming that is mandated by government that it must be broadcast on SABC. You expected to carry sport, for instance, the national teams and so on and so on. And we understand the cost that is involved in doing that. How are you going to carry the mandate as prescribed by government and the constitution if that money is not there?
Okay. I just want to add, Bongi, you know, despite the challenges that the SABC has been going through, there's always been a clear directive and priority that we focus on the mandate.
Yeah.
And to date, if you look at the statistics in terms of meeting the mandate, the SABC has always been meeting its mandate. And I ascribe that to strong executives within the business, and it's really moving resources around within the business to ensure that we meet those challenges. I just want to touch on sports rights. If you look in the last 3 years, the SABC's, last 5 years, the SABC made a loss of about 3 billion in sports rights, meaning we're paying far too high for certain sports within the country. And there's been a review in the operations in how we handle sports rights. So one of the first things that we do is we're not going to spend on any sports that we don't have a return to at least break even or make a small profit. And you'll notice that in most recent times, some of those sports we've actually not been doing. Or we've been playing them as a delayed sport, cricket as a point in case. So yes, we're still committed to our mandate, and we're also working with ICASA in terms of reviewing sports rights. So we just want transparency in terms of purchasing sports rights, and based on that, we're also reducing our total expenditure on sports. Last year, I think we made a loss of about 380 million just in sports, and if you weigh that up to the losses that we made, you know, if we had not made those losses in sports, you could see the SABC would have been close to breaking even. And this year there's a huge focus on ensuring that we don't make losses on sports rights, but still committed to the mandate. And one is able to find more cost-effective sports to still meet the mandate. So that's also part of our operational process in terms of ensuring we meet our mandate going forward.
Dr. from Rooyen, how much do we really need here at the SABC to be out of the woods? And what is the minimum that is needed immediately as in like yesterday or end of this month?
Yeah. So the total that we need is about 6.8 billion. Our immediate requirement is 3.2 billion, and that's what we've requested in terms of a guarantee. And the monies that we will receive is mainly to pay our debtors. And here we're talking about not prioritizing the big people first, but a lot of the production houses are dependent on payments from the SABC for their existence. So a large part of that 3.2 billion would be going to those production houses. The other part as well that's important is that you need to start purchasing new content. And the new content is what keeps the SABC relevant. One would notice that in the prime time, your competitors are starting to purchase that type of content that we're losing ground to. And then, of course, from a radio station perspective, you'll notice that a station like FM, as an example, does very well as a radio station, but it does no marketing. And we also want to be able to bolster the brand, to make the brand more exciting, so that it can be highly competitive. It already is with other radio stations, but to make it even more so. And then the other area that we require the guarantee for is for infrastructure. A lot of the infrastructure in the SABC is old, so we require new digital type infrastructure so that we can move into the OTT environment rapidly, so that we can support our DTT environment as well. And also, we need a sophisticated environment in the radio area, because radio is becoming very interactive in terms of social media, the online space, etc. And that requires infrastructure to make it exciting for the listeners out there.
Are we not too big though for our own good? I mean, if you look at other independent media, television, radio stations, they don't get this amount of money that we get, but they are able to be profitable. Well, let me not say profitable because I don't know, but they are carrying on.
Yeah. I don't think we're too big, and I don't think we should be making that comparison to a commercial station. Firstly, one has to remember that the SABC is a public broadcaster, and as a public broadcaster, it broadcasts radio in almost all 11 official languages, even in Khoi and San for one of our radio stations. So as such, it has a different obligation to other radio stations, and within those confines, one has to still make sure that you become profitable. And one of the focus areas for us to ensure that we become profitable is also to start re-energizing the brand. So again, just in summary, I don't think we're big in terms of meeting our public mandate, but there are opportunities on the table that or triggers that we can call on, or predetermined objectives, which I believe can make us profitable as a radio station.
In the 5 minutes that we have, I want us to highlight some of the key areas of the turnaround strategy that you've presented. But before we do that, let me ask then, is there any appetite from any of the banks to work with you once that guarantee has come forth from government?
Yes, definitely, there is an appetite. One of the conditions of getting the guarantee is that all of the 5 banks need to come together. They need to unify, and then they have to share the loan that they give to the SABC. So it works out to an average of about 600 million per bank. In this particular instance, it's being led by our own bank, which is ABSA. And one of the banks currently has a challenge in terms of wanting to give the loan, because they're not convinced with the security from Treasury. And based on that, one needs to understand as well that the condition is that all 5 of them need to agree to give the loan. So that's where we stand. I'm still confident that we will get the guarantee, and mainly because there's been a lot of input from Treasury as well as DOC to assist both the banks and the other institutions to ensure that we satisfy those 11 preconditions from the banks.
Dr. Craig van Rooyen is the Acting Chief Operations Officer here at the SABC. We're talking about the SABC bailout. We're talking about the challenges that are faced by the public broadcaster. Let's then look at the turnaround strategy, and let's look at some of the key elements of that turnaround strategy, and why it was not bought into earlier on, quickly. Are there any challenges, and perhaps highlight the challenges with the turnaround strategy?
Okay. So I don't see specific challenges with the turnaround strategy.
Yeah.
The turnaround strategy is a strategy that's been developed by the SABC management, and to this end, the executive directors and group executives have put together a robust strategy and roadmap which clearly outlines the action plans. These have been approved by the board, so that already tells you that it's a robust strategy. It's been accepted. It's not needed to be accepted by the DOC nor by Treasury. I also want to add that this is something that already started in the last quarter of last year. It was then shared by the Department of Communication for inputs, and a full-day strategy session was arranged by the leaders as well as organized labor to solicit inputs, and that was duly done. So in line with our governance processes as well, the strategic roadmap was then presented to the SABC board for consideration and approval, and we have people on the board from different, or at least all walks of life, lots of business experience, and they've approved that strategy. And again, the SABC body is the only one that can approve that strategy. So just to go on to giving you an insight in terms of the pillars around the strategy, we have 7 pillars in that strategy, and that strategy basically, you know, covers the main aspects of a balanced scorecard in terms of looking at people. It looks at processes, it looks at the customer interfaces, and it looks at stringent management of finances. So the first pillar of our strategy really looks at people, and that pillar really focuses on, do we have the right people? How do we train our people? How do we get our people re-energized and refocused into the SABC? And it's got very specific predetermined objectives. We also look at how do we train our people in terms of the new 4IR way of being training, online training, etc. So there's a huge focus on that. The second pillar is the financial focus, and here in the strategy there's predetermined objectives around the types of savings that you would do within the big areas of spend other than people. It also looks at new revenue opportunities, and we have specific objectives and initiatives that's being focused on. Some of them I can't speak about today because we operate in a highly competitive environment.
So you've mentioned some of them. I'm running out of time. I've got just half a minute. I just want to, you just named all 7 of them, which is great. Just two quick things. So in terms of SABC staff, can they rest assured that at least for now there will be no retrenchments? Can they rest assured that at least come end of July they will be paid? And can you make an assurance that programming will not be disrupted? In just 30 seconds, sir.
Yeah. So the first thing I can say is the Section 189A is still in abeyance as it stands. It's a board resolution.
It could come back.
The board needs to decide.
Okay.
I'm but an executive director on the board, and I can't make that decision.
Okay.
In terms of, and we're doing a skills audit in the process as well. Come the end of July, I can say that the people will be paid, and yet in saying that, one also has to be mindful that you have all these creditors knocking on the door, but because employee payment is a priority for ourselves, I can almost guarantee that they will get paid at the end of July.
Well, I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you
Thanks.
very much. That's Dr. Craig van Rooyen, the Acting Chief Operations Officer here at the SABC.